everyone. Welcome back to the L.A.M.E Book Club podcast. My name is Melissa.
I'm Ellie.
And we are back another beautiful Monday morning with a hot goss. Oh, wait, Ellie, you have to sing it.
Hot goss with unpopular sauce.
We honestly should just get a recording of you saying that so that we can add it in.
Maybe we should make a little jingle. I've got people that I know.
I'm going
to have a jingle done. I'm going to make it. It's going to be great.
Incredible. All right, let's see. We say that now. Let's see if we follow through.
I know. Aren't we full of saying things and not doing things?
If that's not us, I don't know what is.
I know. Whoops.
But
all right. Well,
I'm excited.
Welcome, everyone. Yeah.
Yep.
We have quite a few things on the docket. I'm so sorry. I'm so stealing your thunder. We have quite a few things on the docket for housekeeping. And the first thing we want to mention is, like we said last week with our kind of little vision casting.
A few weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
we're back recording. Can you tell?
Our very last episode, our book club episode. So if you only listen to our Hot Goss episodes, you probably wouldn't have heard this, but go back and listen to our Tower of Dawn. It's chapters 58 through 68, and then plus the epilogue, Fireheart. First half of that episode is just kind of going through our normal book club, just on those chapters, and then the second half is we did like a vision for L.A.M.E Book Club podcast. We have some exciting things in the works, and we announced it on that episode. But that's all. Continue, Ellie. Like we had announced on that episode.
Yeah. One of the things announced is we are starting a Patreon, and so that's going to launch October 2nd. We're going to have some initial bonus content on there, and our book club is going to move over there. So if you are here for Hot Goss, stay here. We are going to come out with Monday episodes continuously, so you're not going to miss that. But if you are a L.A.M.E at heart and you are part of our book club, head on over to Patreon, because we are going to move our episodes there, and we are about to vote on what the next book will be, since we are going to wrap up Kingdom of Ash within the next month or so. Our
Patreon will launch on October 16th, but our book club episodes... I'm so sorry. I'm getting the dates confused. Yes, our Patreon is launching on the 2nd, but our episodes will continue to be free until the 16th. We, in the meantime, because our Kingdom of Ash, the last episode, is going to come out on October 16th. And it's certainly not fair to have just 2 episodes then for like the last 2 episodes of the series we've been on for months to move over to our Patreon. So we're going to keep those normal. But then moving forward after the 16th, our book club episodes will be there. But to make incentivize still, we will have additional bonus content between October 2nd and October 16th on our Patreon. So that's where the gap will be filled. For a couple weeks in October, you're going to get plenty of L.A.M.E Book Club content, because we'll have extra content on top of the 2 episodes we do each week anyways.
And it's fun. It's fun. Okay, it's fun. So
it's fun.
Next what?
I was going to say... Well, we're transitioning into the same thing. I just was going to do it differently. And I'm just going to keep talking now since I am. We are also, since we're talking about October.
Sing it. Sing the thing.
Sing what?
Hello, Halloween.
Oh, and as my good friend Gabby from Gabby's Dollhouse sings, it's almost Halloween, Halloween, halla, halla. Halloween, Halloween, halla, halla. My 4-year-old is obsessed with Gabby's Dollhouse and that song. She also was obsessed with Halloween. She had a Halloween-themed birthday in June. So
that's my kind of girl.
In October. She's very excited. But we are doing our annual Halloween episode this year, and it's going to be very fun because we've grown so much since our last Halloween episode. We actually want to do original scary stories. So last year we just found scary shorts, talked about them. We did a dress up thing. That's still going to happen, but that's completely separate from the content. But we want to hear your guys' short stories. So please don't make them too long. I think we made up like
I think we capped it 1,000 words, but honestly, scary short stories, they can be your personal story. They can be entirely fictional. They can include vampires, fae, mermaids, whatever you want. But we want to read them, and we want to read them on the podcast. And if yours gets selected, you get a sticker. And if yours is the chosen winner of all of the stories we read, you get a little swag bag.
Yep. So there's definitely incentive. Also, our stories submitted by Patreon members will be read first. So you will be more likely to be selected if you are a member of our Patreon. Not plug again for Patreon. However, you don't have to be a member of our Patreon to submit a story. The way it's going to be done is we're going to have a link to a Google form in our bio on Instagram. And so that's actually already live. We want to give you guys plenty of time to come up with a story and write it and submit it before our episode at the end of October. So go to the link in our bio. There's going to be a Google Forms for our Halloween episode. It'll be in our link tree. It's going to be super obvious. If you click on that, that's where you can submit your story, and we will let you know if it's going to be in our episode or not.
Yes. It's
going to be very fun.
Halloween.
I'm so excited.
Halloween is the best. Halloween, we get candy, we get to dress up, we get to read scary stories. Woo! See, I'm done. I'm so excited.
I'm more of a spooky story kind of gal, not scary, but I am liking Halloween more and more the older I get, which is so, I feel like backwards. I feel like normally you love it as a kid and then like it less as you get older. But there just was never a big emphasis on Halloween in my family growing up. And so it was like, we did it, but like we didn't, I never went trick-or-treating. We always went to like a harvest festival. We did
harvest festivals too. Yeah.
I dressed up and like we got candy and stuff. We just never went like door to door trick-or-treating. And so the idea of Halloween was lost on me as a kid. It just was something that we like kind of casually did. And now as I'm older and like I have kids that think it's fun, it's so much more fun for me to embrace it now.
Yeah. I don't have kids. I just think I love spooky season. All right.
Well, and in the theme of spooky season, I don't know if you've noticed, I've worn it in my last 2 episodes, but that's because we're batch recording, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm not outfit repeating. We are just out repeating.
Lizzie McGuire, you are an outfit repeater. No, I'm not Melissa, tell me all about that really cute sweater.
Yeah, so this is from the Bean Workshop, you guys. We have a code with them, but it's fun. It's perfect for spooky season. It says, I only accept treats in the form of books, and it has a cute little ghost, and it has a cute little ghost pumpkin with books in it, aka, and honestly, that's what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start, when I have trick-or-treaters, I'm going to go to like a half-price bookstore and just get like good old classics, and instead of candy, I'm going to expand their mind and give them literature. That is what I'm going to do.
Think
kids are going to hate me.
Everyone's going to hate you.
And I will love me. So that's all that really matters.
They're going to like pull on their parents to like move away from your house, like pull away from that crazy lady that's handing out
kids are gonna start
Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre's best works.
Mom, I don't want another copy of Dracula. We need to keep walking.
Yeah, not the fun house I see, but
no.
I like the ambition. I do. Wait, let's go back to the Bean Workshop.
Oh, yes. But we have a code. Ellie knows more about the code than I do, so take it away.
I'll tell you about the code. L.A.M.E Book Club Pod. That's our code at thebeanworkshop.com.
I could have guessed.
Yeah, you should have. But if you don't want to remember that and you just want to click a link, there is a link in our Instagram bio. It'll take you right to their shop and already have your 10% applied. So happy shopping. Their spooky stuff is so cute, and it is spooky season. Cute. We are it is September, mid-September. It's time.
Yes,
it's time to don your spooky. All right, guys, like, subscribe, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That means so much to us. And follow us on Instagram. We have a review of the week. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, this one comes from Franklin Tang 10. And it says, I could watch 5 more seasons of this. 5 stars. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Franklin.
I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for a good acronym. And when I found out what L.A.M.E stood for, I thought it was so cute and witty. I had to give this podcast a shot. Side note, L.A.M.E does not mean we don't like books. L.A.M.E stands for Literary Analysis with Melissa and Ellie. Thank you very much.
It's an acronym. Yes.
Melissa and Ellie have now become my spirit animals. They are seriously so funny and entertaining to listen to. I started with their Fourth Wing / Iron Flame videos and quickly read ACOTAR and Throne of Glass to follow along with the pod. Their banter is great. The Hot Goss episodes slap. I appreciate that the podcasts are also clean, so I can listen to it at work. Definitely recommend giving them a listen if you haven't already.
Thank you, Franklin Tang 10. That is summarized, honestly, like our whole goal. And you know what? Honestly, that was it for housekeeping, right, Ellie?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Because I feel like, I don't know if you picked this review for this week on purpose or not, but truly, this feels like the perfect segue into what our Hot Goss episode is about today. And let me tell you, it's hot goss, or maybe it's just more unpopular sauce, but I love that she called out, we do very intentionally make this podcast clean, because there are a lot of book podcasts out there, and they're all great, and certainly not saying we're better than anyone else. That is, please hear me, that is not the point. But all of those podcasts have the E for explicit on there for a reason. I mean, and we just wanted to create an environment here where we can talk about all the same books. We don't need to talk about every aspect of the book, and nor do we need to talk about it in specific ways. And I just think, like, I'm really glad that this person called that out, because that really is, like, we're very intentional about this podcast staying clean, because we want it to be something that you can listen to. Like, I have kids. Like, I try to make sure that everything I listen to in the car is something that I don't mind them listening to. And my kids are getting older, so they're at an age where, I mean, not old, but my oldest is at an age where she would understand and comprehend the words that are being played in a podcast if we're all in the car together or stuff. So, like, we want this to be something that you don't. Yeah, it is on purpose. And with that being said, today we are actually talking about if smut is used as a crutch in books. Yeah. So this is, the point is not to ruffle feathers. I want to clarify, like, also preference this by saying, like, please have an open mind when listening to this episode, because we are not judging.
We're not condemning. We're not judging.
Not condemning.
We're not here to make anyone feel bad.
Absolutely
We're just saying.
We are just saying things. And also, I'm going to state this. I don't know if it's obvious or not. I really hope it is. And I feel like we've made subtle comments, but I actually am realizing that we've never come out and said this on an episode before, and not because for any reason in particular. I feel like it just maybe hasn't come up organically. But Ellie and I are both Christians, and that does not mean that we can't like and enjoy these same books, but we also are going to view things a little bit differently. So again, with that being said, we are not holier than thou. That is, again, not the point. But we also know that there's a big portion of these audiences that agree with us and honestly even think the same way. Whether you believe what we believe or not, there's going to be a lot of people that just don't want to read certain things. And there's going to be people that read for, like, those reasons alone. And that's great. We're all individual people. We can all do whatever we want. But that is our, like, mindset when coming into reading books. And so we will touch on that in a little bit throughout this episode, but I just also wanted to make that, like, blanket statement. So if anyone's ever like, my goodness, why do they think like this? That's why. Like, there's well reason behind our thoughts.
Oh, I wasn't expecting you to go into that. I love it. Well, okay, here we go. With that, Quinley, the way I intro this smut. Is not. Wait. The way I intro this, I did not expect Melissa to go into that. So, for all intents and purposes, I'm changing the P word to corn. If you catch my drift, okay?
I'm glad that you are gonna say corn anyways, because I'd feel yucky saying
I do too.
Just because it's kind of a weird thing to say. Like, it's not. Yeah. Whatever. All right. I don't want to sound like I'm 4 years old, because that's really not what I'm getting at. But just go.
Guys, you all know. If you ever listen to our early ACOTAR books, you know I turn bright red. So
red.
Pray for me for this. Here we go. Picture this. And this makes me already steamed beans, immediately steamed. Picture this. You're sitting reading A Court of Thorns and Roses when your quote unquote friend yells across the room, in a crowded room, mind you, "How's your fairy corn?" I am embarrassed. I am angry.
So embarrassed.
I am embarrassed because they yell, they just don't get it. And they say it as a joke, but they don't want to get it either. Like, if you said it, you're like, it's not that. Like, they don't care. They just want to get a rise. And sure, whatever. But I obviously speak from experience. Can you tell? There is
I think honestly everyone I think everyone
has run into
this has had that experience, truthfully. Like,
It's so outrageous to me. Okay, there's quite literally nothing more frustrating than someone from outside of the book community condemning you for something that they don't understand. And that's really not the case in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to tie this all together, but I also want to say just this little piece. I saw a reel circulating a few weeks ago from one of our favorite podcasts, sister podcast, Bookbound Pod, that basically captured Elise voicing over, I don't read Spice. And the response to that being, no one is giving you an award for not reading Spice. So it's like, it was a joke. It's a fun reel. But what was meant to be funny, lighthearted, and just, turned into a battlefield in the comment section, of course, accusing people who read Spice of being corn addicts and those who don't, absolute prudes and better thans. You know, just the absolute extremes. And
naturally.
So, Miriam, who's another girl on the podcast, clapped back with the most solid response I think I've ever seen in internet history. And if you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. And it was as follows. I challenge you to pick up A Throne of Glass and tell me that it doesn't have one of the most incredible plots of all time. I challenge you to read ACOTAR and tell me that it's not a story about friendship and overcoming mental health challenges. She goes into a couple more examples, but ends with, yes, these books have spicy scenes because these books show relationships in all aspects of what they are. And if that's not something that you want to read, then skip those chapters. Amen, sis.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yes, in full agreement with that statement. I think it's really frustrating that the general public labeled these books as fairy corn when in reality, these books are so much more than that in all aspects, really. So let's start here. Where is Spice not needed? I absolutely do not think that smut is needed in any YA books. I draw the line hard. YA is YA for a reason, young adult, if you're not familiar with the acronym.
If you're not cool like Ellie and don't know what YA stands for.
At most, fade that sucker to black if you absolutely must have a scene, but that is truly where my boundary is. I've seen the argument that teens have questions as they're growing up and books like this would help them out.
I would argue that they should have a conversation with their parents or guardians.
Guardians, yes.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sorry. I do not subscribe to you'll find answers of Blood and Ash. Are you kidding me?
No.
And if
no.
Truthfully, when it comes down to it, if I became a parent, I would like to trust the genre of YA. Like truly, like, are you going to read all 600 pages of a book if it is that big? Just to like skim for your child? No, you want to just trust that the genre really is what it is. And I've seen lately that people are marking books YA and they do have smutty scenes in them. And I think that like, I don't think that that's needed. I think then that becomes an adult book. So what's your thought?
Well, and I 100%, I totally agree. I also think it's the same concept as like TV ratings, right? So something is rated G for general audience, PG for maybe parents should watch this, or PG-13. Like, hey, we think anyone younger than 13 is probably not going to be. This isn't going to be a great fit for them, or you know what I mean? But the thing that I'm seeing that's happening with books is exactly what's been happening in the movie and film and TV industry lately, and the standard for what each category is changing. So like it used to be if there was even one F word, it was immediately rated R. Like any movie that was like as soon as someone dropped an F-bomb, the movie was rated R. It didn't matter if that was the only thing quote unquote wrong or R rated about the movie. The second that word was said, it was a rated R movie. And I don't remember what the official thing is now, but there are movies that are rated PG-13 that say the F word more than once. And they just are constantly, I just feel like society is constantly pushing the limits with what is an age appropriate thing for our kids to be reading and or watching and or listening to. And as now, and like being a parent, I'm having to now, I think it's just, this is like very real for me and like where I'm at in my life. I don't trust ratings for anything anymore. So like you're saying like, oh, I should just trust like young adult means young adult. And it's like, it makes me sad that to be like, I wish I could. Like, I really wish I could. Nowadays, I can't even trust children's shows all the time. Like, you'd be surprised at what quote unquote kids shows have in them nowadays. I'm like, there's no freaking way. This is geared towards like 4-year-olds. And there's absolutely no way they're going to be able to understand what is happening in a way that it doesn't matter that they're doing it at like they're claiming it's an age appropriate level, like it's a dumbed down version of it, but it's like it is such a mature concept that they are not able to understand what that actually means. And to your point earlier, like you saying like kids, like they would maybe have better answers or something. It's like what is being written in these books is not even remotely educational. It is also the unrealistic side of smut. It's like this is also not a normal.
Your expectations aren't going to.
Your expectations are going to be so
realistic,
wrong, and you're setting yourself up for a life of disappointment if you
it's
are
interesting.
using this as education and you're thinking this is normal, because none of this is normal.
It's interesting you throw that in, because I actually did put a point in here and then ended up taking it out, but it's organic now. Our episode on where do we draw the line between fantasy and reality played a lot into this too, because for Spice, like if it's affecting you in a way that like your expectations aren't realistic anymore, and to the point where like your relationships with your partner it's not working, that's a problem. And so I think for developing minds, if you have no reference and you're going into this thinking that's also going to be a problem. So good point. Okay, so I don't think we can get through this whole episode without some transparency. And so I'm laying my personal cards out on the table, because we're friends and all. We're all friends here. I personally don't read smut anymore. Gasp. What a plot twist. I know.
You don't say.
I know. And I imagine the response is, but you read all these books. You read all the ACOTAR books. Yes. I'm not going to lie to you, so I won't. At the start of this podcast, I absolutely did read through all of the ACOTAR books, Throne of Glass, all of that, and did not skip chapters. But by the end, honestly, I just did not feel great. I felt really convicted about it. And like we said in the beginning, everyone's beliefs are different, and this just did not align with how I choose to live my life. But, we're not sitting here condemning or judging you. If you do, let's still be friends. This is just a personal matter for me. And so I also like, these books are great, and I didn't want to be out of the loop, because like we said before, these books are amazing and encapsulate so much more than just the 2 or 3 chapters of spice. Like in a book of 100+ chapters, you've got 2 that are actually spicy. Exactly. I don't want to skip the whole thing,
Exactly. And you said it perfectly. Like the 95% of most books is not based around the spice. Let's be clear, there are some books that is all it's centered around, and that's the point of the book. But the books that we've been going over, like, and that we read and that we've talked about, that is not why the book was written. Like, it is just an element of it. And so
of the relationships in the book. Yeah.
And I mean, it is, that's a real life element of relationships. Like which is why authors have even on the record said why they include it. And so does that mean that we have to, it's the same thing like a movie. Like, are you gonna sit there and watch a sex scene with your parents? Like, probably not. You're probably gonna fast forward it. Granted, reading is a very
my
personal
worst nightmare.
You guys, I just have to really quick caveat on this. You are gonna throw up. I had none of us knew what this movie was about. All right, none of us. But I watched or started watching.
Don't
let
say
me clarify.
Wolf on Wall Street.
It was Wolf on Wall Street with my mom and my dad. It was just the 3 of us. And
that is my worst nightmare.
The opening scene of him doing a line on someone's butt crack, I got so red you could tell it was nighttime, and you could still see how red my skin was. I think we watched 3 minutes of the movie.
I can't believe you didn't jump scare, just flip, I would. We
were like,
the whole TV would be flipped around. I would. My
and
heart's
because
pounding
my siblings,
hearing that.
Because there's fairly big gauge gaps between all of my siblings, I was the only one at home when it was just the 3 of us living at home, so it was just the 3 of us watching the movie.
To take on the pain with you.
No,
horrendous.
It was just me, my mom, and my stepdad, just all together, and I was sitting next to my stepdad. And I wasn't even sitting next to my mom.
That is my own personal level of hell, to be absolutely honest with you.
It really was.
I'm crawling out of my skin just hearing that secondhand. I can only imagine. It was. I don't want to imagine.
All that to say, you're not going to sit and watch that with your family, most likely. And so you're able to fast forward through bits, but that doesn't take away from the movie itself. The same can be done in books if you want it. You don't have to. It's obviously there, but guess what? Your eyes can skim. That is absolutely a thing.
And I'll tell you what, if you listen to our last Hot Goss episode, I'm sure you're probably wondering, yeah, freaking right. You could not have possibly skipped that much smut in the book literally made around smut with Daughter of the Blood.
She's talking about, Daughter of the Blood from the Black Jewel series.
And you want to know how I read through so fast? Because I skipped a lot of pages. It's a lot. But anyways, since I've started skipping chapters, I have been in the position of like, did I miss something? And like common sense kind of like, just reading around, you kind of can figure out, oh, I'm sure that just happened in that chapter. I understand what's going on forward. But you do feel like, oh, I just missed a vital key point. And because I don't want to read this, like now I'm missing out on the book. So Melissa and I came up with an idea. I don't know if it's our original idea. I don't know if I've seen it before and maybe I'm just taking it, but
I've actually seen other people do it, but it was after you and I talked about doing it, so we didn't necessarily, but it's also not like the craziest original concept either.
It's not a crazy original idea, but we do want to offer tools if you're like us and do want to skip these chapters or for any other reason. So we are going to put on our Instagram like for Fourth Wing, I made some for Fourth Wing and one for Akatar, the first book, of if you do want to skip these chapters, here's what the chapters are. And then if you keep sliding, we're going to give you a breakdown on what exactly happened in those chapters so that you don't have to read through the spice and you can get the vital information you missed. Yeah. So that will be there for you after this episode airs. And so, yes, I am a testament to the fact that these books are still enjoyable. I don't feel like I'm incredibly missing out by reading these chapters or not reading these chapters. And if you do read them, cool. If you don't, cool. But if you're nervous about missing anything, then we've got that for you. So here's where the argument can be brought up that spice helps develop the intimacy with characters. Let's talk about that. I'm going to call something out. I have been interchanging the words smut and spice, but in reality, there is a difference between the two. Yeah. This excerpt comes from Sierra Horton McElroy in Writer's Digest, and she says, in fiction writing, smut means sexually explicit material. Think 50 Shades of Grey, erotic novels. It's their own genre with their own devoted reader. But as with anything, they're not for everyone. You can have spice in a scene that doesn't even have physical contact. All you need is desire. If we know a character's desire and attraction, then we can feel the longing and passion along with them. And all of that can be fully, emotionally, and even physically realized without having content that is overly graphic and descriptive. So think about how much was accomplished in the Keira Knightley version of Pride and Prejudice when Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy accidentally brush hands. Hot. Oh my gosh. The setting is clear and the tension is established, the smallest moments can be imbued with burning desire. So what I took from this bit is that I look back on the romance between Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy and the romance between characters like Hunt and Bryce, who are obviously doing it a bunch. I don't know if this is truly comparable between the couples, but I'd argue that I feel the love a lot more between Elizabeth and Darcy. Gosh. Even though we saw the physical intimacy between Hunt and Bryce a lot more. Moral of the story, spice can help, but let's not replace good writing with cheap sex scenes. Your take? Oh, man. I'm so glad you said that. I even self-titled, I don't know what we'll end up titling this, but is smut used as a crutch? Because I feel like in not every book, but in some books it absolutely is. I love your take on it. The excerpt from Reader's Digest was perfect. That like perfectly explains it. For me personally, and while I do think my beliefs sway this a little bit, as a human being, I feel so much more emotion and connection to a story from that like longing desire and the little bits that they leave out, like leave you to wonder, than I do when everything is written and laid out for me. Like, because when they leave you wanting more, that is so much, to me, that's way better writing than just being like, and then here's what happened, because then you don't have any room to, and not to say that you're going to sit there and imagine it, because some people might not, but that's the beauty of it. It's like you don't really know, and so that's where it's like
as a writer, you have to fill in the blanks without actually filling in the blanks. And that's where the creativity comes in. And that's when the story gets so much better. You think about, and we've already addressed this slightly, but like how everyone just says fairy corn when they think of ACOTAR without even reading the book. Or the series. When I think of that series, the smutty and or spicy, well, since we've defined the difference between smut and spice, the smutty scenes are not at all what I first think of. Right. Exactly like Miriam from Bookbound Pod said in her comment, like, you think of the friendship, the loyalty, the character development. My goodness, Nesta's mental health struggles and overcoming all of that. That is what you think. And preach somebody. No. But like, that is what you think of when you think of these stories. You don't think of, and oh my gosh, chapter 54 in Akamath. My goodness, nothing has provoked more emotion from me than that. And that is what you think of. Chapter 54 is why that is everyone's favorite book, or dare I say, make assumptions. Like, it's not for the smut. And if we had, same thing, honestly, and all of the popular books, or the incredibly popular books today, you think of the ACOTAR series, the Empyrean series, like those that everyone talks about, while there are smutty scenes sprinkled throughout, and only a handful, might I add, but while that is included, if you took those scenes out and just left everything else as is, I guarantee you the books would still be just as popular. And truthfully, my evidence for that is powerless. Like, there is actually, I would argue, not even enough of spice in that. Like, they don't even freaking kiss in that book, yet I devoured it because it was the emotion, it was the desire, it was the leaving wanting more. That it in the, also for me, Lauren Roberts, I just love the way she writes. Like, I think she's poetic, and so the emotional aspect of all of these books are really what draws people in. And I'm speaking very like blanket statement here. I know that that's not necessarily going to be the case for everyone, but I would say most people, that was the case for them. And so I think it absolutely is used as a crutch sometimes. I think it's added in unnecessarily because that's what people think or authors think people want. And there are people that want it. But I think if it's added in too much or overly used, or honestly just like, I truly like, and this is my like belief showing, I don't think it's necessary just in general, but when it's overly used, it ruins it. I really would say, not just for me, I do think it like ruins the storyline because it's cheap writing to get attention. Like,
it's like kind of it's a different font, but the same situation in horror movies where like they've just got a bunch of like jump scares. Like, there is no suspense, leaving like the plot line lacks. You're really not wondering like what's going on. Oh, the story's really good. I'm so scared. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, that just happened. And so then you leave and you're like, all right, it was okay, but it wasn't like, wow, best movie ever as far as the horror genre goes. Okay, so Goodreads user SK had a recent poll out that asked, do you think authors have lately been focusing more on writing smut rather than creating a romance with more emotional depth? Not talking about eroticas, just romance genre in general. And the vast majority voted yes, and it needs to be more balanced. I couldn't agree more. I do think a good modern example of this can be found in the Throne of Glass series between Rowan and Aelin. We saw 2 or 3 books of just solid friendship and flirting before we even saw one spice scene. And I believe that was maybe the only spicy scene or smutty scene.
There's like 3.
Maybe there was one other
series.
Yeah, but between 8 books, very minimal. And so their love was palpable, and it was well written and well received by the audience without a heavy presence of smut. And so something to call out, I think. Well done.
Yeah, I think ACOTAR is her most popular and most has the biggest reach out of all 3 of her series, but I think Throne of Glass has the biggest pull. Like, I think people are more it's more endearing. People love it more. Like, they're like, oh yeah, I love ACOTAR, but don't say, and like no comments, no corrections on Throne of Glass. Like,
it's got a bigger fan base, like a more dedicated.
Yeah.
ACOTAR's like, oh, everybody's read it. Like everyone has read it at this point. Throne of Glass is for the true fans, I feel like. Okay, so overall, guys, here are my takeaways from this conversation. Number one, write a good plot. Don't replace the romance with smut. Include it if you want, but don't compromise your book, you know?
Exactly.
And then two, I don't want this episode certainly not to come off as I don't do this, so I'm better than you, because that is not my heart. And I swear, if you tell me you read it and you're like, I do read smut, I'm going to say, okay, let's be friends. What I really want is to provide options for the girlies who don't want to read spice, but still want an in on the best books around. So dropping, again, we are going to have those slides up. Yeah, shameless plug for our Instagram. We're going to throw out like the chapters. Here's what you might miss, so you can skip it and not miss out on anything.
And the link for that will be in our bio.
Yeah, well, it's not a link. It's just slides, like a post.
Oh,
like
a regular post. Sorry, I thought we were making a separate. Yeah. Just kidding. Ignore me. It's on our carousel.
Honestly,
posts.
It'd be easier to do it like that, but for now, it's just a post. And so if you guys want more of those, like, oh, but I want to read this book and this is popular, what about these? Happy to make them for you. Just let me know.
Yeah, just let us know what books you want.
Yeah, that is all I have. It's kind of short and sweet this week, but you got anything else?
No, that's it. I just really want to echo your sentiments of, like, please know our hearts behind this. Like, we obviously, like, believe I have a certain level of belief in things, and are, like, what we are and are not interested might be different, but like at this we are booky, like we all read books, like we all love books, and like that's ultimately why we're here. And let's be real, like that's the why anyone has a book podcast, is like we're talking about the stories and stuff, and we love the stories, and that is where we all have common ground. And so I really want that to be like the biggest takeaway. Like I do think it's a problem. Like I think regardless of what you believe or not, I think everyone, just like that poll on Goodreads, I think everyone can agree that it's being used cheaply more often than not.
Yeah, instead of writing like solid stories, or solid romances, rather.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I
want another example real quick. Divine Rivals. No erotic, no smut scenes. Excellent story. The spice, the desire, insane. Mm-hmm. It was so good. One of the best romances I think I've read in a long time. And I'm not a romance girly, so that's saying a lot.
I liked it a lot. I'm certainly not going to say it was one of the best romances. I think the romance takes
where you
out.
are the romance... with Powerless is where I am with Divine Rivals, because I'm not the biggest fan of Powerless, but I devoured Divine Rivals. I would read it again and again.
Yeah, no, that's the romance between Payton and Kai in Powerless was a lot more it for me. I mean, I love Divine Rivals. Like, don't get me wrong. But Divine Rivals, I liked it more. Like, what I liked more about that was it was like a historical fantasy. Like, it felt like a historical fiction meets fantasy, and I thought that genre is just really cool to me. But again, you're right. Like, it's still a fantastic story, and it wasn't added in there, so that all we had to focus on was the story. But all that to say, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let us know what you think as far as like the industry at large. If you agree, if you don't agree, it's fine if you don't agree. Like, let's just love, be respectful, like on all sides, like, and we'll be happy and we can all be friends.
Well put, kind of.
Thank you.
All right. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. That is all we've got. Catch you guys for the next one. Bye.
Bye.